Buenos días, soy Juan José Peso, presidente de Diamond Quest. Cuando en el 2008 Jeff Hope escribió este libro, Crowdsourcing, ni mucho menos pensó que iba a tener la potencia que hoy está teniendo. El libro se llama El poder de la comunidad y cómo va a transformar todos y absolutamente todos los negocios. Para aquellos de vosotros que no conozcan muy bien la tendencia, el crowdsourcing, deciros que, por ejemplo, la NASA está haciendo su plan estratégico por medio de la comunidad, está recibiendo ideas. Deciros que, por ejemplo, Islandia está escribiendo su nueva constitución por medio de la comunidad, que el alcalde de Nueva York está recibiendo de la comunidad también las mejores ideas para poder hacer un Nueva York más habitable. Y en España tenemos casos recientes, pocos aún. El caso de, por ejemplo, AdTribu, que con 125.000 creativos está reinventando desde hace un mes el mundo de la publicidad, de cómo se contrata, contratando directamente a los creativos. O el caso de Spanair, que lo que está haciendo es reinventar la nueva Spanair por medio de la comunidad. El caso que os voy a introducir, que os voy a presentar, Local Motors, es aún más increíble. Dejadme presentaros primero a John. Bueno, John es algo realmente curioso de presentar, porque John Rogers, ante todo, es marín. Él fue adiestrado como francotirador de élite en los marines, ha estado en Irak. Ahora lo veréis, es un armario. Por otro lado, John, aparte de trabajar en Harvard, directamente trabajó allí y estar en McKinsey un tiempo, compatibilizó esto con su proyecto personal que era Local Motors. ¿En qué consiste Local Motors? Pues algo tan increíble como hacer coches por medio de la comunidad. Ha sido el primer proyecto donde el código del coche es código abierto y ya está en producción. Normalmente un coche lleva 7 años en producir desde su diseño. Él ha conseguido hacerlo en 18 meses. Aún más increíble todavía es que el Departamento de Defensa de Estados Unidos le dio un proyecto muy complejo para un vehículo terrestre militar, donde los años de investigación para ese tipo de vehículos pues son larguísimos, y él ha conseguido hacerlo en 5 meses. Tanto es así que el presidente Obama, Barack Obama, pues de forma bastante recurrente le nombra como uno de los emprendedores más interesantes de Estados Unidos, y por cierto conduce uno de sus coches, el Rally Fighter, que ahora mismo está produciendo ya en realidad, o sea, podéis comprar uno, cualquiera de vosotros, es una chulada, y nuevos modelos. John, it's a pleasure to have you here. Welcome to Madrid. Welcome to EEC.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I guess I'm the only thing that stands between you and lunch, so I'll try to be fast. We've got a lot of ground to cover today. I'm going to talk about something that's highly complex, and by the time we finish, each of you are going to know how to build your own car. I'm John Rogers, and that's probably the best Spanish introduction that I've ever had. So I'd like to talk a little bit today about a famous and very controversial, and I might add very brave, Spanish philosopher and playwright, Miguel de Unamuno. He was born in Bilbao, and he died in Salamanca. And he was kicked out of Spain and brought back into Spain several times, but he was famous for saying one thing. Does anybody know this phrase, que inventen ellos? Good. So, I'm not going to apologize for my Spanish being so bad. How about that? That's the one phrase I know. Okay, so no, it's a very important thing, and I think it says something about what I'm going to talk about today, and that is the notion that we have this fear as a nation, and Miguel, as a philosopher, was speaking about that fear, that somehow as a country, all we know how to do is make together as a collective, and it's not true anymore. And the advent of businesses, like you just heard about, of Airbnb and many other businesses, Amazon probably most importantly among them, is that we have this history that is now being crushed. The United Kingdom is famous for having gone through an industrial revolution. You saw pictures of the factories that came into the UK, and it took them almost 150 years to go through an industrial revolution. It took the United States 50 years to go through an industrial revolution. Everybody talks about how fast China is coming into their industrial revolution. And what I'd like to introduce as a concept is it's possible for individuals to go through an industrial revolution like that. You can get online and you can find out not only where to rent a hotel room in somebody's home around the world, but you can also find out how to cut a dress. You can also find out how to make an electromechanical device. You can find out how to travel someplace and meet the right people without ever going there. And then you can go and buy the things that allow you to do that through sites like Amazon and various other key online retailers. So you can change the world individually, and you don't have to wait for somebody to tell you that as a nation they need to do it someplace else. So I believe, truly, que inventen ellos is dead, because you should be the one to be doing it yourself. So I founded Local Motors in 2007, and I represent one of 20 people and one of 25,000 people around the world that believe that they can be part of a change in the way in which cars are made. We're the #1 open source car company. I've seen a lot of statistics today. This is my favorite one because there are no other open source car companies. We do this thing called co-creation, and in English it means to create with somebody else. It is very simple. We apply it to design and engineering, and as an individual, I believe that design rules the world. I don't think that you buy things based on the function that they do for you. It's a very, very controversial subject. I think you buy them saying that you believe in the function, but you really believe in your heart that that thing is so good looking that I have to have it for myself. It's the way we dress when we get up in the morning. It's the way in which we choose the things that we do. So we apply design as a very important part of the way in which we build cars. This is the automotive market today in its biggest form. These are the suppliers and the makers. We call them original equipment manufacturers, OEMs. So $110 billion is spent every year by these makers and by these tier 1 suppliers. They make seats and they make materials and things like that. And we think there's a better way to do it. But the way in which you have to approach it is you have to approach it at the grassroots. So I won't talk to you about community today because I think you probably heard about it a lot already. And we can have a discussion about it online and we can have a discussion about it offline. But it's a reality. I don't like to talk about the subject of, has anybody ever heard the phrase millennials? The Y generation? So this is a phrase that comes up a lot, and I hate to talk about it because I am one of them. And many people out there are one of those crazy people that are out there. And the important thing is that if you engage with your fellow humans, you can actually listen to the fact that they have great ideas. So we decided that in 2007 we would start asking people, what kind of car would you like to drive? And how would you imagine that being made? And the important part about that is you're not just talking to enthusiasts, you're also talking to designers and you're talking to engineers. And the interesting thing about that is, guess what? Many of them are out of work today. So they have time to help you. And that's a very important thing. We lived in this, I grew up in a world where, at least my parents especially, lived in a world where when you came along and you wanted to design cars, you got a job from the man. And the man told you what you were going to do every day. You're going to design a door handle. You may be a brilliant designer, but you're going to design a door handle and you're going to do it for 10 years. And you're going to be the best door handle person in the world. But guess what? I'm not going to let you put your name on the door handle. And so we said there's a better way to do it. Since everybody's out of work right now, why don't we let them design the whole car or pieces of the car, or if they were a great door handle designer, put their name on a door handle, but they get their name on the door handle. And so the important part is to be able to incorporate a community, and we believe that it is both physical and online that this happens. So in starting the business, we said, okay, we're going to engage people online, but we're also going to have a physical microfactory where this stuff becomes real. Sounded like a crazy idea, but we put up this little space. It's 20,000 square feet, and it's grown a little bit since then. And basically, when we got an idea from the community, we would make it real. And all of this grew over the course of about 18 months to create our first car. And we did it. In 18 months, we got designs from all over the world. The interior came from Romania, a man named Mihai Panetescu. The exterior came from South Korea, another guy named Sang-ho Kim, and many other widgets around the car, hinges, various things like that. And it's true, we buy a lot of these things. We buy a lot of them and put them together or remanufacture them in a way that works. But it ends up creating a vehicle which I think is quite amazing. And it ends up creating a community, which is quite amazing too. So I promise, perhaps the only boring eye chart that I'll give you today, this is the growth of our community, which now is up close to 25,000 of people who join us both physically and people who join us on the web. And it's not about size. I can tell you that much. There are many people that might believe it is. But the important part is that in this community, it's about the quality of the interaction. We have people moonlighting on our site who are great designers. They've worked for Ferrari. Don't tell that to Ferrari. They've worked for Daimler, and they may be out of work, they may have retired, or they may still currently work there, and they may be spending time at night thinking about the things that they never get to do during the day. And so this is the important part, is the growth of a quality community is what I mean to bring. And there's the result. And yes, I drive my car to work every day. I just took this car, so this is the Rally Fighter, designed by Sang-ho Kim in Korea and people all over the world. 155 people contributed to this car. And I think for one major thing that it proves is that you can build a car that's visually arresting, that takes your breath away. There may be many people in this audience that don't like the way it looks, but I guarantee there are people in this audience that would kill to drive that car. And you can't have mine. So I just took my family. I have 3 little boys and my wife, who's pregnant with our 4th boy. And we drove from Phoenix, where Local Motors is located, and we drove to Maine and back. So it was about 7,000 kilometers, and we did it in about 8 days. We've now put over 250,000 miles under all the Rally Fighters that are out there, and we've sold them to almost 26, almost 30 people. And so it's a small but very important disruption in a very difficult and complex industry, the note that you can crowdsource a car. And if you don't believe it, we've done it, and our customers can tell you about it. Okay, so where are we going with that lesson? I've got 15 minutes to tell you where we're going with that lesson. Hopefully you believe what we've done in the beginning. We're starting a community called Local Forge, or the Forge for short. And what it basically means is what we've learned in the making of automotive is something that we want to share with all the people that have great ideas. I was really depressed by the notion that every time I went out and talked to people about the Rally Fighter, they would stop somewhere halfway through the conversation and say, that's nice. But I really like the Renault, or I really like the Seat, or I really like the Opel, or have you ever seen my Mini from 1950? And I would say, no, I haven't, but I think it's interesting. And we got really inspired by how many of our community members had passion for so many brands. And when you really got them thinking, it wasn't even so much the brand, it was the feature of the brand. It was the function and design and amazement that had been created by all of the people before them that had owned that brand. So we thought, wouldn't it be great if we could imbue that sense of belief and creativity for people themselves to be able to work on projects? So Local Forge is the embodiment of that. What it does is it takes what we've learned at Local Motors and it makes it so that people can take their own idea and bring them forward. It will not happen quickly, but we're committed to it. What this means is that through both e-commerce and e-making, which basically means if you have an idea and you can design it, that you can quickly see it be made. We're going to revolutionize the car industry and show how individuals can come together and change not only a whole car, but parts of cars. It's a massive industry around the world, the automotive aftermarket. It's tinting, it's windows, it's things you put inside your car to hold things, and it's things you do to your car. And in some countries, you're allowed to use some of it, and in other countries, you're not. But I've been amazed to see that from Bangladesh and Singapore to Canada and South Africa, there is automotive aftermarket that goes on everywhere. And there's fascination with cars. And just like many of the businesses that have come before me and talked, we were a spark of an American idea, but we're a global company from the beginning. Our community members are in 122 countries and territories. Some of our biggest fans are the African Automotive Design and Development Association. They're out of Uganda. And we spend a lot of time talking to people all around the world about what their dreams and desires for cars are. So Local Forge. Today, we have a community, small, I think, a Rally Fighter, and a microfactory. In the future, we have the Forge, we have more cars, we have more microfactories. Small, big. Small, big. That's where we want to go. Too many things on that slide. Okay. I promised you I wouldn't show you. I have to live up to my promise. All it said is that, I'll paraphrase for you. It was super expensive to build cars before we came along. The average investment in a car program from a big OEM like BMW or, let's say, one of the largest in the world, Volkswagen, is typically from the ground up somewhere around €1 billion. €1 billion. So that means if you sell, they say never do math in public, but I'm going to try. Okay? So if you sell 1 million cars, that means that you have spent $1 billion to make that model of car that you're going to sell 1 million of. That means that that's $1,000 of cost per car that goes into it. 1 million times 1,000 is $1 billion. I think that's right. I hope it's right. And so, in any case, the point is, if you do that and you only make a couple $1,000s per car, it shows why big car companies need to sell 1 million cars. And if you've ever tried to sell cars, anybody in here ever sold cars before? Hands? Anyone? Yes, brave. Any more? Yes, a few more. So selling cars is hard. Yes, sir? It's very hard. And to sell 1 million of them. Have you ever sold that many? Don't let him sell you a car. So, okay, so selling 1 million cars is very hard. Our idea is, let's take that cost way down. So no longer are you going to spend €1 billion to make a car. The way you do that is you have to come up with ideas faster, and you have to use things that were already invented out there and not reinvent them. You have to apply them to ways in which you can make things. So we're the first community-powered engineering and design solution provider in the market, and we consolidate these ideas, which speeds development and lowers cost. You mentioned giving a car to the president. We didn't give it to him. He actually bought it. I am a businessman, and it is important to sell things. Unlike this guy over here. Just kidding. And so here the important point is that the U.S. government is notorious for spending a lot of money on defense. We have a massive defense budget. But even the United States recognizes, and there's been a famous trend that's been predicted, if we continue to buy military equipment at the pace, which is slow, and at the cost, which is huge, of the way in which we buy equipment today, we will be able to afford one plane with the entire U.S. defense budget by the year 2050. One plane. So the idea of the government right now is we have to change the way in which we procure. We have to come up with things faster. We have to make them more tailored. And there's a very, very simple reason why this happens, this cost escalation. Because you let the human condition get in the way. We start to say to ourselves, okay, how long does it take to make a vehicle? It takes me 10 years. How much is it going to cost? In the military, it usually costs $2 to $3 billion to do a new vehicle. So it's really expensive and it takes a really long time. So then you get these well-meaning people together and they say, so what does this vehicle need to look like? And they say, well, I don't know what it's going to need to look like because I need to know what I need it to do 10 years from now. The problem is you never know what's going to happen 10 years from now, especially in a military. The world is full of changes, and things happen so much every day. Just imagine trying to predict what happens 10 years from now. So it's a silly way to design, and the only way in which we do it is we throw lots of money and lots of people at it, and that's what makes it so expensive, and that's what makes it take so much time. So the U.S. government said, this is silly, we ought to figure out a better way to do it. Can somebody out there design a car that's meant for one specific mission and do it really fast and really cheap? And we raised our hand and we said, we think we can. Then we had to do it, and that was the problem. So we did. They gave us a mission, and they said, we're in Afghanistan, and our Humvees, these big, who knows what a Humvee is? A lot of people. Okay, so Humvees. I was a Marine for 9 years, and I've driven in a lot of Humvees. They look really cool, and they just are terrible to drive in. They're awful. They're heavy, and they don't do one mission really good. They do a lot sort of good. So they said, we need to be able to get 3 people out of harm's way if they've been shot, and we need to be able to bring supplies into a unit very fast. And we need to move in riverbeds, which are kind of tight, and they're very rough, and the Humvees are getting stuck in it, and we need to do it very fast. Can you build a vehicle that does that? And can you do it, instead of for $1 billion, can you do it for $500,000? Whole thing, every part of it, the plans, the tools, everything. And we did it. And we did it in 4.5 months. We did it in 4.5 months. And we delivered that vehicle to the president, and they've been testing it just since the day that we delivered it, and it's been doing an amazing job. So if you don't think you can do it, and you don't think you can dream, and you can be involved, whether it's building cars or doing something else, I hope this stands as a proof point beyond even the rally fighter that we made, that it's possible to do it. And that's why the President came to shake my hand and take this vehicle, because this is how you save lives, this is how you save money, and this is how you make better products in the end. It's not just about military, it's about what you can do for the commerce. So we keep it really simple. There are people out there that need solutions. We call them solution seekers. They might want a whole car, or they might want small parts of a car. They're the people that on our business model side, so I know there are going to be people interested in how we do business. These people come to us and they pay us to do things for them. The U.S. government was one. Our customers that buy the Rally Fighter are another set, but that's where the money comes from. And then where does the money go out? The money goes out to make these things. Simple components, subsystems, and vehicles. And we hope at some point we'll be able to do these three things at the bottom: aircraft, boats, and motorbikes. Anything that has to do with automotive. That's what we do. And so when I talk about the money going out, one of the reasons that I try to emphasize things, a lot of people say, well, why don't you just become an internet site? Why don't you just aggregate people's ideas and then sell those ideas to big car companies because they need it? And the problem we found is we would love to do that. It would be great if the big car companies would buy our ideas just like that. But the problem is we find that sometimes they're slow to buy those ideas. Sometimes they're really slow to buy those ideas. So what we like to do is we like to make sure that we maintain development projects that we have more control over in order to be able to show people. Building cars is not a very simple internet business, as I started out saying, and I'll continue to say probably for the rest of the time that I'm alive. But I do believe that it can be more simple. And so one of the complex parts about building a business like this is you have to have development projects like a rally fighter, like a military vehicle, that one that was called the XC2V, in order to be able to prove to people why it happens. So that's what our development projects are. Here's a brief infographic of that military vehicle being made through all of the processes that it came through. Started with a challenge from the U.S. government and moved through the development of a vehicle until it became real. This is our next one. We just announced it, and basically what it means is Local Motors is going to be doing a Metro electric vehicle that's going to be the first open source vehicle on the electric side that's ever been done. So if you dream of having an electric vehicle and you live in a city and you want this to be your vehicle, you should reach out to us and let us know. This was designed by a man in our community, and we're going to be having more competitions to be able to further refine the design and make that real. But we think that there's a major change going on not only in the design of vehicles but also in the powertrain, and it's one of the reasons why we reach out to electric vehicles at this point. Because with electric vehicles, you know you have a fundamental change in the industry that most people don't recognize. For 100 years, the biggest automotive companies in the world have a central asset, and that's the engine. They own the powertrain. They own the motor. And so you can't buy one of their cars without using their motor. And they tell you about it all the time. They say, look at our powerful diesel engine. Look at this, a 1.3-liter turbo diesel that goes super fast. And we made it. But the truth is, the next company has the same diesel engine. It may be called something different, but it does the same thing. Fuel goes in, fumes come out, car goes forward. It's the same thing. It's not magic anymore. And so the actual incremental value of that piece of intellectual property has become pretty low. And the big change is that the electric motor isn't owned by these big car companies anymore. And this is probably the fundamental reason you could say why we started a business like Local Motors. It was to put the hands back in the technological development that is out there and to keep pace with it. It's to say, if you've got a great idea, we want to buy it and put it in this car. And if your idea is really slow and hasn't been developed yet, or it's something that's old, then we don't want to keep putting them in the car. So with the advent of electric engines, which you'll find all over the world right now, and battery technology to go with it, and lightweight materials to make those things go around, we think it's now time to build a vehicle like this. So these are the other side of the business. We talk about where the money comes in from and then where the money goes out to. These are solvers. These are the people that come in. You could be a solver. If you're an enthusiast, you come and you give your ideas on the community. We're about to revamp our entire web interface just for these solvers because we learned there were so many people that weren't designers and weren't engineers but had ideas. So in 3 weeks, we're going to launch a brand new face to our website, which makes it easier for you, if you're not a designer or an engineer but you have feelings about cars, to come in and engage at Local Motors, and I hope you will. We work in these areas: industrial design, packaging and dynamics. So if you're a mechanical engineer, this is where we are. You'll find our solvers like to work on graphic skins, so they're graphic designers. Electromechanical folks who are good with everything in a car that is an electromechanical device. And lastly, operations and sourcing. So if you happen to know someone who makes something and you want to introduce us to them, this is someplace where you can do that if you're interested in cars. And believe it or not, there are many, many people that supply things to the automotive industry that are not huge companies, but they're medium-sized businesses. And they're known to you, and they're known to your friends and your colleagues around the world. And we want to create a nexus where people can come in and make those people be known. And here's the future. The future, like I talked about, e-commerce and e-making for automotive and automotive equipment. The opportunity to be able to take people's ideas and not just use them in a vehicle that we make ourselves, but also to make them available to other people is a huge opportunity. In the United States alone, there are $30 billion spent every year on just these types of products. $30 billion, just in 1 year. So, but it is completely disaggregated. It's made up of people who sell B2B, B2C, and they don't have a place which is like a car place to sell things. Amazon got their start for one product. It was books. Zappos got their start for one product. It was shoes. Anybody know of Etsy? It's a crafting site. And if somebody had said to my friends Rob and Matt, who founded the business, well, there already are sewing circles. People already know where to sell their crafts, their scarves and things like that. There wouldn't have been any need to make Etsy. But it's a place to come together and sell and trade. And this is what we see for the future of co-created automotive. And then making. The opportunity to be able to meet people who make things and be able to find the ideas that you have a home to be able to be made is another piece. So look for that in the next couple of years. And I'll leave you with this final quote. A man named Francis Guillard developed this idea, and I think that it is really a look into the future of automotive, and I'll read it for you. Whoever designs the most compelling engagement platform, design engagement platform, will attract the most effective design ecosystem and become the dominant car company of the 21st century. The race is on. So if you never cared about cars, you may now, and I hope you come and join our community of people who want to change the pace of development and make the car something to be appreciated and to make it a positive force for change, as opposed to something that you just simply accept or you share on Get Around or Zipcar. We need to change cars, and we can do it together. And that's us. Thank you. I can take questions in Spanish or in English. Yeah.
Bueno, tenemos tiempo para 3 preguntas más o menos. Si queréis acercaros al centro. Bien, tenemos la primera, no se ve muy bien. Si no, os lanzo desde internet.
Hi. Actually, the concept is very interesting, and I
No se
think
te oye, puedes un poquito más alto. Si
yeah, the concept is very interesting and it's very commendable. The entrepreneurship and the invention, the way you've developed the idea and took it forward. So my first question is, what sort of education background do you have? Are you an engineer?
So what kind of education background do I have? I started out as an engineer in college. I did that for 3 years in university, and then I became an art history major. And so I changed, and I think that sort of represents my background. I found that I didn't like the way that engineering was taking me, and I felt like there needed to be a softer side to the way in which we develop products. And so that was my background. That's where I came from in pure education. I am one of those people that believes you never stop learning, and so I feel like my education has continued throughout everything that I've done. I've worked in China in a startup business building medical products, and then I went to the Marine Corps, as you know, and then I started this community from which we learn things every day, and it's been part of our education.
Thank you. The other question I had was, because in industries, you have to look at efficiency a lot, right? And when you source millions of products and components for cars, usually car manufacturers have a very efficient model built around it to guarantee low cost, right? So I'm wondering if this is a sustainable model if you grow, because you will still have to transport things and components from everywhere, and that will be in the long term. It will probably consume so much resource in terms of transportation of the components. When you make a small model, maybe the impact is not so big, right? And I'm wondering how sustainable is that in the average cost of your cars, because maybe 1,000 euros, the example you put before on the Volkswagen model, right, where you said 1,000 euro extra cost on every car. In your case, what is your average cost of a car? Because what's it called? Volkswagen sells cars for 9,000 euro, right? So I'm wondering what is the average cost of your car, and if really that is sustainable and cost effective.
Okay, so that's a lot of questions in there.
A short one.
But I'm going to try to answer it quickly, and I'm going to try to answer it true to form. It's an unfair question for you to ask me because it's a layup shot. It's a very easy thing for us to do. From a point of view of sustainability, I would challenge any car company to build as sustainable vision as we've built of a car industry. So, to give you a perfect example, if you finish a car and you build it in Leipzig, and then you need to pack it up and ship it all around the world, you are shipping a lot of air and you're shipping a lot of unnecessary weight to put it on a lot and make it wait for somebody to buy it. And you have to build a distribution network that then pushes that vehicle on people and creates debt and creates paper in order for people to be able to buy that car that they don't even know who it's going to go to when they build it. We build a microfactory in a region to sell cars in that region. So it doesn't get built until you want to buy that car. It's build on demand. There is nothing more sustainable than that in the automotive industry, and we've got to stop thinking that just because Henry Ford and Gottlieb Daimler decided that building cars would be a mass production methodology, they built an industry like that because no one had a car. But today in Europe, there's one car for every 1.7 people. And in the United States, there's one car for every one person, man, woman, and child. What we need is we don't need more cars. We need to advance the cause of automotive. We need to get out of the current heavyweight cars that get traded every 5 years and get pumped in. There's no doubt that we need to change the cars that we have so that they're less fuel consumptive and that they can be rebuilt and remade and last longer. But we don't need to be evolving that same sense of consumption. So I feel like our model is a very sustainable model and a very different one. And it also has great advantages since it's made locally and sold locally. There's a great opportunity to be able to take parts from those cars and reutilize them in future cars. Whereas today, when you look at the broad automotive industry, most cars just get scrapped uniformly. You finish a car, eventually after you finish trading it in, it gets handed in to somebody who cuts it up and turns it into scrap metal. But there are many parts in that car that could still be used. Alternators, various parts of the vehicle, pumps, things like that, they don't die when the car dies. But because we don't have a place to take them out and reuse them, we don't do it. And that's a non-sustainable way to be able to do it. You asked a final question about the price of our car. Today, the way in which, yes, it is true that our cars are more expensive than other people's cars. The Rally Fighter started retailing at $50,000 US. So it's expensive. It's not the most expensive car in the world, but it's expensive. But I believe that you have to start someplace. You have to sell something that people want, and then you take the opportunity to use that power to be able to make things less expensively as you go along. And I think at $50,000 with a car that was built in 18 months and is attractive and good looking to a core group of people, there's an opportunity to really make a change as we go forward. It won't happen overnight, but it's definitely the right path forward. And we don't have distributors, we don't have dealers, we do it directly out of the factory, so I don't have to pay a margin to a distributor, I don't have to pay a margin to a dealer. And when I ship things, I don't ship a whole car. It's all shipped to my factory in very tightly knit boxes where there is no air around it, and I only order what I need in order to be able to make it.
There is a fantastic question in Twitter, which is, where's the beef for the designers? What do they get from you?
I would like to have the richest designers in the world, so I say to our designers, I'd like you to earn $1 million if you make a car. We started with the first vehicle, which Sang-Ho Kim won $20,000 for designing. So you could argue that it's not a great proposition for him. from a point of view of he got $20,000 in hard cash and the Rally Fighter was built. But we've only built 26 Rally Fighters so far, and we only have tooling to make 2,000 Rally Fighters. And then we'll go on, before we even get there, we'll go on, as you know, to this next electric vehicle or the military vehicles that we do. But the idea is that if we sell 2,000, he's going to make $1 million. Because we can easily cover that cost in our profit margin. And by giving him and the other designers that contributed primarily to that design a monetary reward for the great things that they do, it's not alone the thing that brings people to our community, but it lets them know that we appreciate what they do in a way that no other car company has appreciated them, and I leave that as a very strong thing. When was the last time that you knew the name of the people that designed the car that you drive? And I'll be more specific. When was the last time that you knew the name of the person that designed the Nike shoe that you wear? Or when was the last time that you knew the name of the person that designed the iPad? So I love Steve Jobs for all of the things that he did, but one thing he definitely didn't do is he didn't celebrate the cause of the individual designers that worked for him. And I think there's an opportunity to do that.
Pues había una película que se llama Tucker donde reinventaba el mundo de la automoción simplemente por soñar que una persona podía construir una nueva compañía. Thank you for dreaming of making a new company, a new motor company is a dream that we hopefully that we see in Spain. I hope that we can have cars here, that you can ship cars here. Buenos días, soy Juan José Peso, presidente de Diamond Quest. Cuando en el 2008 Jeff Hope escribió este libro, Crowdsourcing, ni mucho menos pensó que iba a tener la potencia que hoy está teniendo. El libro se llama El poder de la comunidad y cómo va a transformar todos y absolutamente todos los negocios. Para aquellos de vosotros que no conozcan muy bien la tendencia, el crowdsourcing, deciros que, por ejemplo, la NASA está haciendo su plan estratégico por medio de la comunidad, está recibiendo ideas. Deciros que, por ejemplo, Islandia está escribiendo su nueva constitución por medio de la comunidad, que el alcalde de Nueva York está recibiendo de la comunidad también las mejores ideas para poder hacer un Nueva York más habitable. Y en España tenemos casos recientes, pocos aún.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I guess I'm the only thing that stands between you and lunch, so I'll try to be fast. But we've got a lot of ground to cover today. I'm going to talk about something that's highly complex, and by the time we finish, each of you are going to know how to build your own car. I'm John Rogers, and that's probably the best Spanish introduction that I've ever had. So I'd like to talk a little bit today about a famous and very controversial, and I might add very brave, Spanish philosopher and playwright, Miguel de Unamuno. He was born in Bilbao, and he died in Salamanca. And he was kicked out of Spain and brought back into Spain several times, but he was famous for saying one thing. Does anybody know this phrase, que inventen ellos? Good.
El caso de, por ejemplo, AdTribu, que con 125.000 creativos está reinventando desde hace un mes el mundo de la publicidad, de cómo se contrata, contratando directamente a los creativos. O el caso de Spanair, que lo que está haciendo es reinventar la nueva Spanair por medio de la comunidad. El caso que os voy a introducir, que os voy a presentar, Local Motors, es aún más increíble. Dejadme presentaros primero a John. Bueno, John es algo realmente curioso de presentar porque John Rogers, ante todo, es marín. Él fue adiestrado como francotirador de élite en los marines, ha estado en Irak. Ahora lo veréis, es un armario. Por otro lado, John, aparte de trabajar en Harvard, directamente trabajó allí y estar en McKinsey un tiempo, compatibilizó esto con su proyecto personal que era Local Motors. ¿En qué consiste Local Motors? Pues algo tan increíble como hacer coches por medio de la comunidad. Ha sido el primer proyecto donde el código del coche es código abierto y ya está en producción. Normalmente un coche lleva 7 años en producir desde su diseño y él ha conseguido hacerlo en 18 meses. Aún más increíble todavía es que el Departamento de Defensa de Estados Unidos le dio un proyecto muy complejo para un vehículo terrestre militar, donde los años de investigación para ese tipo de vehículos pues son larguísimos, y él ha conseguido hacerlo en 5 meses. Tanto es así que el presidente Obama, Barack Obama, pues de forma bastante recurrente le nombra como uno de los emprendedores más interesantes de Estados Unidos y, por cierto, conduce uno de sus coches, el Rally Fighter, que ahora mismo está produciendo ya en realidad, o sea, podéis comprar uno, cualquiera de vosotros, es una chulada, y nuevos modelos. John, it's a pleasure to have you here. Welcome to Madrid. Welcome to EC.
So, I'm not going to apologize for my Spanish being so bad. How about that? That's the one phrase I know. Okay, so no, it's a very important thing, and I think it says something about what I'm going to talk about today, and that is the notion that we have this fear as a nation, and Miguel, as a philosopher, was speaking about that fear, that somehow as a country, all we know how to do is make together as a collective, and it's not true anymore. And the advent of businesses, like you just heard about, of Airbnb and many other businesses, Amazon probably most importantly among them, is that we have this history that is now being crushed. The United Kingdom is famous for having gone through an industrial revolution. You saw pictures of the factories that came into the UK, and it took them almost 150 years to go through an industrial